I love Scooby-Doo, and I can guarantee there will be a lot of Scooby-Doo on this YouTube channel. That being said, I didn't want to start somewhere basic. I wanted to do something that not a lot of people would do, not a lot of people would talk about, so I decided to look at something that I don't think anyone in existence has ever talked about, or even mentioned the existence of, and that is Daphne and Velma from 2018. Designed as a live-action prequel to the Scooby-Doo franchise, this one got similar reactions to the previous attempt at live-action prequels. I mean, the James Gunn movies rock, but I digress. Daphne and Velma stars Sarah Jeffrey as Daphne and Sarah Gilman as Velma. This film, directed by Susie Unessi, was released direct-to-video and follows the titular characters Daphne and Velma, and nobody else from the Scooby Gang, as they become friends and solve their very first mystery together. Now, as I write the script for this intro, I have never seen this movie. Odds are most people who watch this video also have not seen this movie, so without any further ado, let's experience the film for the first time together. The movie begins with a video welcoming us to a new high-tech school called Ridge Valley High, designed by Tobias Bloom. This quickly shows us that this is going to be a horrible attempt at a prequel to a show set in the late 60s to early 70s, so I'm going to try to get that idea that it's a prequel to the original series out of my head right away. We then roll the opening credits, which seem kind of horror movie inspired, but not well executed. Like, there's flickering lights and a bit of an ominous feel, but because of the bright lighting of everything, it doesn't really come across as eerie as it should. After this, we actually meet the titular characters, finding out that Daphne and Velma are online best friends already, with Daphne being interested in the paranormal while Velma is a skeptic. To go off on a small tangent here, skeptic Velma is my least favorite kind of Velma, because to me, Velma was always a curious soul who wanted to get to the bottom of things rather than immediately discrediting everything that she hears about without any evidence. But I digress. It turns out Daphne moves around a lot due to her mother's job, and she informs Velma that she has just moved to Ridge Valley, which is where Velma lives, and the two of them will be going to school together. Velma seems hesitant upon hearing this news, but Daphne tries to reassure her. We then actually go to the school where Velma is shown to not be very popular and to be a bit of a bitch, even avoiding Daphne after she arrives. Daphne, however, seems to fit in quite quickly as a social and outgoing person. She also is extremely impressed by all the high-tech gadgets and robots and screens all over the school. She, however, isn't completely in the dark considering her mother has developed some high-tech things herself, like Snapchat filters. Once Daphne eventually does catch up to Velma, we find out that Velma is very much against all of the technological stuff and doesn't like her personal information being in the systems the way everyone else's is. This guy Spencer and this girl Carol seem to be Daphne's new friends pretty quickly, but when Daphne is alone in the hallway, we get our first sign of a spook, as all the lights go out and then proceed to flicker. During all of the flickering, Daphne runs into Velma, where Velma acts as though there's nothing suspicious going on for some reason. Spencer then appears to walk through a locker into heaven. Cool. Upon closer inspection, it turns out that it's actually just a secret passageway that they are then shut out of by Daphne's father. Velma goes to run away, almost bumping into a janitor, whose mop she broke a little bit earlier, but I skipped over it because it didn't feel important, but now that we're seeing her again, it may be important. So remember the janitor. Back at Daphne's house, we find out what her dad was doing at the school. As it turns out, he follows her everywhere in an attempt to make sure her life is as perfect as possible. In a way, it's sweet, but in another way, it's kind of terrifying, as we see a small montage of her dad being involved in literally every aspect of her life, making sure that everything goes perfectly for her, which has her storm off to her bed because she feels overly sheltered upon learning this. While she's up in her room, Daphne tries reaching out to Velma, who ignores her, despite them apparently being best friends, as Velma views this as being for Daphne's own good. Daphne, whose pen is apparently also a tape recorder for some reason, decides to plug the audio into her computer and send it to Velma, since it captured a shriek of some sort. Interesting. Upon waking up the next morning, it appears Daphne is on her own for the first time, and without her dad helping her with everything, she's nowhere near as lucky as she seemed before, with us now seeing everything going wrong for her in another little montage. When Daphne encounters Spencer, he is acting extremely off, almost as though his IQ has been drained. He declines to be lab partners with Daphne despite them agreeing upon doing that the previous day. Daphne tries to confide in Velma, who again is a bitch. They end up being lab partners anyways, with Velma sabotaging the experiment, leading to them getting into a fight that ends up sending them to the principal's office. It turns out the principal is Velma's aunt, and she reveals that Velma used to be a straight-A student before getting to high school. The two of them then get into a little bit more of a fight, eventually ending in them making up on a high-tech couch of some sort. Velma reveals that the same thing that happened to Spencer happened to a girl called Olivia before, which is probably why Velma's acting so inept. With a little bit of Daphne's prodding, the two of them decide to actually begin investigating what's going on. Daphne and Velma go to Carol in search of help for the investigation. Carol and this girl, whose name I didn't quite catch, reveal that some guy called Griffin comes from a long line of successful students in the Bloom bracket, which is basically like a ranking system based on how well students are doing at school. Being ranked highly on the system is what led Spencer to getting his brain juice drained or something. Back at home, Velma kills her robot assistant, and Daphne argues with her dad some more about how he was all over her business her whole life, granting her no freedom. The following day, there is a school assembly with the Tobias Bloom himself, where Daphne claims he looks familiar, with Velma replying that he obviously looks familiar because his face is all over the school. Tobias then reveals that Griffin is in fact the winner of the Bloom bracket, and then goes on to unveil a printer that prints food, because this is a perfect thing to do at a high school and not at one of those big Apple convention thingies or whatever. He's printing enough pizza for the whole school, which has Daphne excited, but her and Velma end up leaving together to do detective stuff. While Velma is rubbing melting cream on a locker, Daphne spots Ghostface flying through the hall, but kind of shrugs it off. The goo manages to melt the lock, granting the girls access to the locker that led to heaven earlier, but to their surprise, there is no secret passage in there this time. However, there is a ribbon that apparently belonged to Olivia, meaning that she also went through the secret brain drain passage similar to Spencer. The girls are then caught by the aforementioned janitor lady, and they are sent back to the principal's office, where she just gives them, quote, shame stickers, and makes them lunch ladies for a bit of punishment. Meanwhile, those poor lunch ladies have to do this all the time despite not melting any lockers. Justice for the lunch ladies. Griffin and his posse then come by to get some food and seemingly mock Daphne and Velma here, which raises Velma's suspicion that Griffin may be the culprit, considering winning the Bloom bracket is like a rite of passage for his family and he wouldn't want to let his bloodline down. Daphne wants to act real fast, which I think may mean she wants to beat Griffin up or something. I don't know, but she seems pretty aggressive, and Velma reminds her that it's important that they get intel before trying to settle the case. They then catch a guy eating out of the trash before leaving their cooking posts to hide under a red cloth on a rolling cart, and with some help from Carol, they get rolled right over next to Griffin and his friend's table. It turns out Griffin left his phone in his locker, so he runs off to get it. Griffin is watching cat videos on his phone when they catch up to him, but then the lights start to flicker, and he walks to the same locker as before, almost in a trance, before stepping through into the passage. The girls then melt the locker again, but end up finding nothing, and this time they get walked up on by the principal herself, who is very upset that the shame stickers didn't seem to work. The girls then plead their case to the principal about the zombification of Griffin and Spencer. She doesn't believe them and doubles down on the punishment, giving them shame drones on top of their shame stickers. When they walk down the hall, they realize that Griffin is now zombified as well, which crosses him off the suspect list. Daphne theorizes that it could be a ghost of some kind, but Velma shuts that down pretty quickly, with the girls realizing what the pattern is. Whoever is at the top of the Bloom bracket is in danger, so they go and find out that the person currently at the top of the leaderboard is Michaela, who I think is the girl that I didn't catch the name of earlier. Not wanting her or anyone else to go brain dead, Daphne tells Velma that she should try for the top spot, because she's been holding back to avoid getting brain drained. Velma, although initially offended, does decide to get to the top of the list. However, in order to do so, they will have to sabotage the people higher up on the Bloom bracket than her. Following this, we get like our fourth montage of the movie, with Velma and Daphne sabotaging other students, while Velma rises up the ranks all the way to the number 2 spot just behind Michaela. They end up destroying her one project, and create a diversion to avoid getting caught by a few people, including the principal and Michaela herself. In the process, they both encounter the aforementioned Ghostface that Daphne saw earlier in the film. Upon snooping through a dark, scary hallway, they find out that they are in the secret passage behind the locker. You know, heaven from before. Unless I missed it, I don't think they ever explain how they got back here. I could have zoned out though, but I don't think it's ever shown how they got back here. Anyways, Ghostface reappears, and we see a very cartoonish chase scene paying homage to the original Scooby-Doo series and many of the gags within it, including Velma crawling around looking for her glasses at one point. I kind of like this despite it being hokey. They run into a spooky high-tech room where Michaela is in a tube, which sucks her away to an unknown location. Throughout the room, there are a bunch of computers, monitoring everyone's social media and even putting out the fake posts that make it seem like the people who have been zombified are still fine. Ghostface then reappears, trips, and ends up unmasking himself. It turns out it's just Daphne's father in a bathrobe, who has been following her to keep an eye on her and try to make sure she stays safe. Velma then presses a button, which activates an audio file that puts her and Daphne into a trance that Daphne's father has to deactivate because it's only effective on children. Not that Velma and Daphne are children, they're clearly upper high school age, but there's some reason it doesn't affect fully grown adults. This trance-like state does explain what happened with Spencer and Griffin earlier when they were lured into the passage to heaven. Daphne, Velma, and Daphne's father then decide to call Daphne's mother because she's currently at a meeting with Tobias Bloom, and they suspect that Tobias is behind everything given all of the clues that they are finding in this high-tech room of horrors. After hearing Tobias for a second, the call quickly disconnects. After this, we get a quick heartfelt moment where Daphne's dad reveals that he's following her not because he doesn't believe in her or doesn't trust her, but because he's worried about what the world might do to her and he cares about her, which I think was pretty obvious for the whole movie. Velma reveals that she comes out of her shell more when she's around Daphne, and they all discuss how capable Daphne is in spite of being followed around by her father all the time. So everyone sort of wraps up their little emotional arcs here pretty quickly before the climax of the film. We get yet another montage, this one with the purpose of showing the preparation that the girls go through in order to go take down Tobias Bloom. They go there with high-tech earpieces to remain in communication with Daphne's father. He has a clear view over the security cameras at the building somehow. More science-y hacking stuff that the girls did or something. Velma uses more melty goo to open access to the girls who manage to get inside using a drone. They then show off their camouflage suits that basically allow them to chameleon into their surroundings. This serves little purpose at this time, and no purpose later whatsoever. So this whole segment of them blending into the background does not need to be in this movie at all. Upon boarding an elevator, the lights go out, and Daphne and Velma are confronted by their insecurities in a pitch-black scene with the exception of their eyeballs, which is a nice touch that again pays homage to the original and other old-school cartoons. They manage to fight off their insecurities by just talking about how far they've come and complimenting themselves and each other, which I feel is a bit unnecessary considering they already had that heartfelt moment like 2.5 minutes ago. They then find Daphne's mom tied to a chair with a brain drain helmet fastened to her head. Tobias Bloom is also there waiting for them. He explains that this helmet sucks the ideas and the creativity and the personality out of whoever he puts it on, which explains what's been happening to the students at the school. Bloom then sets a bunch of spider drones on the girls, and they only really focus on Velma as she acts as a distraction in a very cringe karate scene. But I think it's supposed to be cringy because it's hard to believe that they would ever expect these movements to be taken seriously. Daphne frees her mother, and then they discover that Tobias Bloom has been a hologram all along, with the actual culprit being found in a tube operating everything herself. It's Carol from before, in a bit of a lackluster reveal. She had an original idea for a system that the school is shown using throughout the movie, but was not taken seriously due to her young age, so she created the Tobias Bloom hologram and the school, all in an effort to progress technology and scientific thought, and to steal the inventions and thoughts of other kids at the school. Then we cut back to the school, where Griffin and his posse are just kinda there, commenting on how the screen was evil and everything. This confused me for a second, but it turns out it did all happen, and Daphne and Velma just kind of saved the day by unplugging something. Everything is then back to normal, and we see how everyone is adjusting now that the day has been saved and Carol has been stopped. Daphne and Velma remain best friends, and go on to solve all kinds of other mysteries around the world. Turns out that janitor actually wasn't very important. So that was Daphne and Velma. It's not hard to see why this movie didn't have any huge impact culturally or even within the Scooby-Doo fandom. Ultimately, it's not a horrible film, but it doesn't really do anything special, and in an attempt to bring Scooby-Doo to the modern day, it takes away a lot of the charm that the franchise has. There is some awkward, unfunny comedy in there, which is a frequent hindrance to comedy films of the last decade and a half. Comedy writers sadly just aren't as funny or creative as what they used to be. The villain reveal is also kind of lackluster, like I mentioned. It's not egregious, there's a solid mystery line throughout the movie, but without an actual monster or a ghost in any sort of significant role, it lacks a huge part of the Scooby-Doo identity and comes across as just any other TV mystery film. And no, I do not count the brief flashes of Daphne's father in a bathrobe as a monster for the movie. There really just isn't anything that makes this movie special, and it feels just a little bit soulless. Overall, this is a movie you can skip, or one you can put on in the background, or one you can watch attentively, and it would probably have the same effect on you no matter what. And that, unfortunately, is very little. Have any of you seen this movie? And if so, what did you think of it? If you disagree with my views or have any sort of points that I haven't brought up, then feel free to leave them in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe and do all that YouTube stuff for more videos like this. Thank you all for watching, and have a good night.